Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into something that perfectly blends history, chemistry, and honestly, just pure showmanship. I'm talking about the mint julep. It's actually a super fascinating journey. We're going to trace this iconic drink from its pretty surprising origins in ancient Persian medicine all the way to a towering 206-gallon spectacle at the Kentucky Derby.
Let's just drop right into the experience. Listen to this description of a traditional Virginia recipe served back in 1916. It describes a dark, cool room, quote, scented with great masses of fragrant mint that lay upon mountains of crushed ice, young mint, the foliage of which touched your ears. I mean, just picture that for a second. This isn't merely a recipe, right? It drops us directly into the romanticized, totally tactile magic of this iconic cocktail. It was a full-on event for the senses.
Section 1. Anatomy of a classic. Let's ground ourselves in the tangible, modern version of the drink before we go digging up its historical roots. So what's actually in it? The traditional ingredients are elegant and frankly remarkably simple. We're looking at 2 ounces of bourbon whiskey, 4 mint sprigs, traditionally spearmint if you're in the South, a teaspoon of powdered sugar or simple syrup, a splash of water, and some crushed or shaved ice. If you've ever had a mojito, you know exactly how this works. It belongs to a loosely associated family of cocktails known as smashes, where you literally physically break down the ingredients to flavor the final product.
But bringing those simple ingredients to life, that relies entirely on the muddling. You aren't just giving it a quick stir. You are deliberately crushing the mint along with the sugar and water. This is absolutely crucial because it releases those essential oils and juices directly into the mix, which profoundly intensifies the flavor. Once it's all muddled, you pack the glass with cracked ice, pour in your bourbon, and stir vigorously. You stir until the outside of the cup actually frosts over.
And speaking of that frost, you've probably noticed that a traditional mint julep isn't served in just any old glass. It's almost always in a highly specific silver or pewter cup. Plus, there's a really strict tradition on how you're supposed to hold it. You only touch the very top and bottom edges. Why? Well, it's actually just highly practical. This hand placement likely started as a way to reduce the heat transferred from your warm hand to that highly conductive silver. By keeping your palms off the middle, you ensure that this perfect, picturesque layer of frost forms on the outside, keeping your drink ice cold.
Moving on to part 2, from medicine to cocktail, we are about to completely upend what you probably think this sweet southern drink was originally used for.
Get ready for a pretty surprising etymology. The word julep is defined as a sweet drink, yeah? But historically, it was used specifically as a vehicle for medicine. Literally, a way to make bad-tasting medicine go down easier. And the word itself traces its lineage through the Spanish julepe, which came from Spanish Arabic, which originally derived from the ancient Persian word galab, meaning rosewater. So, wild as it sounds, the DNA of this Kentucky Derby staple actually originates in the Middle East as a sweet medicinal delivery mechanism.
And there's just a stark contrast between where this started and where it ended up. Look at the early English julep. It was highly medicinal, only lightly alcoholic, and often contained camphor. If you don't know camphor, it has a very strong, almost clinical smell and taste. Now compare that to the American mint julep. It totally ditched the camphor and leaned heavily into a base of bourbon, rum, or gin. It was heavily sweetened, featuring fresh, aromatic mint steeped right into those strong spirits. Basically, it transformed from a bitter pill into a total indulgence.
But, that transition definitely wasn't overnight. Even in late 18th century America, the mint julep wasn't purely a leisure drink. In a 1784 publication of Medical Communications, a doctor actually documented treating a patient who had severe stomach sickness and frequent retching. And his prescription? An emetic, some opening powders, and a mint julep. Yes, doctors were literally prescribing this minty, boozy concoction to settle an upset stomach, which is frankly a medical approach we just don't see much of anymore.
Section 3. The Bourbon Takeover. So how exactly did it shed that medicinal baggage for good? Well, it was largely driven by an evolution in the spirits used to make it. Watching this drink evolve over time is just fascinating. By 1770, it's already shedding its medical image. It pops up in a southern U.S. satirical play called The Candidate, which features a literal drunkard character named Mr. Julep. Then, by 1803, a book published in London describes it as a morning dram steeped in mint that Virginians took daily. Think about that, a morning habit. Later, in 1840, British Captain Frederick Marryat published a super popular recipe. But get this, he didn't use bourbon. He used equal parts peach and common brandy.
It actually wasn't until the 20th century that bourbon decisively eclipsed other spirits, like aged gin, to take the crown as the definitive base spirit of the American julep.
And the presentation evolved too, picking up some amazing sensory details in the 19th century. Back in the 1830s in New York, a version known as the hailstorm julep got really popular. It was made with these small hailstones of pounded ice. Epicures of the time would actually rub the rim of the glass with fresh pineapple, and they totally marveled at the literal stalactites of ice that would form and encrust the outside of the tumbler. It was basically visual art in a glass.
Which brings us to our final section, the Kentucky Derby spectacle. We've seen its medicinal roots and its regional rise. Now let's look at its massive, incredibly lucrative modern era. The real game changer hit in 1938. That is when Churchill Downs officially and formally began promoting the Mint Julep in association with the Kentucky Derby race. This single, brilliant marketing decision launched a legendary spectacle that fundamentally changed the cocktail's cultural footprint forever. It went from being a popular Southern drink to a global symbol of this one specific event.
To really grasp the impact of that 1938 decision, you just have to look at the sheer scale of modern consumption. Roughly 120,000 mint juleps are served at Churchill Downs. And guys, that isn't over an entire year. That is over just a 2-day period covering the Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby. 120,000 drinks, virtually all of them served in specially made collectible glasses. It is an absolute operational marvel.
But they didn't just scale up the volume, right? They completely escalated the prestige. In 2006, Churchill Downs introduced an extra-premium, custom-made charity version of the drink. The price tag? A cool $1,000 per cup.
So, what makes a julep worth $1,000? Well, it's all in the ludicrously global ingredients. First off, these drinks were served in gold-plated cups with silver straws. Nice start. They used premium Woodford Reserve bourbon. But here is the crazy part. They used mint imported from Ireland, spring water ice cubes literally flown in from the Bavarian Alps, and sugar sourced all the way from Australia. Just contrast this vast international extravagance with the drink's humble, regional southern roots. It's night and day. Though it is worth noting, the proceeds did go to support charitable causes for retired racehorses, which is pretty great.
Now, if you thought the $1,000 cup was the climax of this story, think again. In a truly absurd 2008 world record, Churchill Downs commissioned a mint julep glass that was 6 feet tall, actually 7.5 feet if you count the giant mint sprig on top. This FDA food-grade acrylic behemoth held 206 gallons of the cocktail. It was so massively huge that it required an elaborate, totally concealed pumping system hidden inside the giant stir straw just to distribute the drink to the crowd. Talk about a spectacle.
So, we've seen it prescribed by 18th century doctors, we've seen it sipped from frosty silver cups by 19th century epicures, and we've seen it pumped out of a 206-gallon